Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanandari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanandari Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanandari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanandari Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Praivajakacharya Astatir Sata Shishimad. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktinanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Anant Kota Vaishnavanda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Varukun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Maya Parnavidham Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Chansana Book Distribution Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glorious some devotees, all glorious some devotees, all glorious some devotees, all glorious, Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, Text number 32. Agastya Prag Duhitaram Upayeme Dutavatam Yasyang Dudhachuto Jata Idmavahat Mojo Muni Agastya Prang Duhitaram Upayeme Tutafratam Yasyang Dudhachuto Jata Idmavahat Mojo Muni Akastya Prag Duvitaram Upayeme Dutapratam Yasyang Drudhachito Jata Idmavahat Matoj Muni Akastya Prag Duvitaram Upayeme Dutapratam Yasyang Dridhachito Jata Idmavahat Majomuni Agastya Prag Vitaram Upayeme Tutapatam Yasyang Dridhachito Jata Idmavahat Majomuni Agastya Prag Vitaram Upayeme Dutapatam Yasyam Dutachito Jata Idmavahat Majomuni Agastya Prag Vitaram Upayeme Dutapatam Yasyam Dutachito Jata Idmavahat Majomuni Agastya, the great sage Agastya. Prag, first. Duhitaram, daughter. Upayeme, married. Dritavatam, taken to vows. Yasyam, through whom? Dridhajuta, named Dridhajutata. Jata was born. Idmavaha, named Idmavaha. Atmaja, son. Muni, the great sage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki. The great sage named Agastya married the firstborn daughter of Malayadvaja, the avowed devotee of Lord Krishna. From her one son was born, whose name was Dridhachuta, and from him another son was born, whose name was Idmavaha. Translation and purport. Oh no, here's the purport. The name Agastya Muni is very significant. Agastya Muni represents the mind. The word Agastya indicates that the senses do not act independently, and the word Muni means mind. The mind is the center of all the senses, and thus the senses cannot work independent of the mind. When the mind takes to the cult of Bhakti and engages in devotional service, the cult of Bhakti, Bhakti Lata, is the first daughter of Malayadvaja, and as previously described, her eyes are always upon Krishna. Asitikshanam. One cannot render bhakti to any demigod. Bhakti can be rendered only to Vishnu. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:5-23. Thinking the absolute truth to be without form, the Mayavadis say that the word bhakti can apply to any form of worship. If this were the case, a devotee could imagine any demigod or any godly form and worship it. This, however, is not the real fact. The real fact is that bhakti can be applied only to Lord Vishnu and his expansions. Therefore, Bhakti Lata is Dritavrata, the great vow. For when the mind is completely engaged in devotional service, the mind does not fall down. If one tries to advance by other means, by karma yoga or jnana yoga, one will fall down. But if one is fixed in bhakti, he never falls down. Thus, from Bhakti Lata, the son, Dridayuta, is born, and from Dridhachuta, the next son, Idmavaha, is born. Interesting names, huh? Idmavaha. The word Idmavaha refers to one who carries wood for burning in a sacrifice when approaching the spiritual master. This is the reason that brahmacharis have saffron. Yeah, in the olden days, as it's described here, the brahmachari would go out and he would get wood for the spiritual master. So he would do his sacrifices, right? He needed his servant, the disciple, would go out and get wood. But cloth is always white, right? Cotton is white, right? So he goes out to get the wood. It's in the morning, so there's dew on the ground, and his dhoti gets wet, and it mixes with the saffron in the flowers. So when he comes back, his dhoti is saffron. Means he's the servant of his spiritual master. That's how he got saffron. He's a servant. That means he's a servant. He's got saffron. He's going out getting wood for his spiritual master. Come back, he's got orange saffron. The point is that Bhakti Lata, the cult of devotion, fixes one in his spiritual position. One so fixed never comes down, and he begs children. He begets children who are strict followers of the Shastric injunctions, as said in the Vedas. Tad vigyanartham sagurun evabhakachet samitpani sotriyam brahma nishtam. In the line of devotional service, those who are initiated are strict followers of the Vedic scriptural injunctions.
You know what samitpani means?
No.
Carrying wood.
Oh. Okay, samapani, carrying wood. Om Jnanatamandasya Gyananjana Sulakaya Chaksham Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Mukam Krotavachalang Pangundang Hayate Gurim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Sri Gurum Dinataram Vanchikapatribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So here it's mentioned that the mind is the center of all the senses, and thus the senses cannot work independent of the mind. So the senses act according to the dictation of the mind. Udvam gachati satvasa madhya chistanti rajasa jagana guti ritista athogashanti tamasa. That one must deliver oneself with the help of the mind, not degrade oneself. If the mind becomes the friend, then we're in very good shape. But sometimes the mind is the enemy. So the mind is the friend when we're engaged in devotional activities. When the senses are engaged in devotional activities, then we know our mind is our friend. What is that? One must deliver himself with the help of the mind, not degrade himself. So the mind is degraded. When the mind is degraded, then the senses do all kinds of nonsense. Yeah. The mind is thinking of nonsense, the senses do nonsense things. So we're trying to purify the mind, engage the mind in the service of Krishna. And the mind acts in a certain way or thinks in a certain way due to our past karma, due to our past activities. Just like some people are attracted to Krishna consciousness upon just hearing once. They just hear something, about Krishna, and they become attracted. And some people, it's like there's many people who grew up amongst devotees, devotee family, but they just weren't attracted. Their whole life they were with devotees, and then they get away from their family, and then no devotional activity at all. So, due to past activities, they were somehow born into a family of devotees, but somehow it just didn't stick. So then they just go out and become ordinary materialistic people. I remember, like myself, when in Los Angeles, I was watching one TV program, and one yogi came on TV, and he was speaking about spiritual stuff and talking about meditation and yoga, and immediately I was attracted. And I went to their center, and I found out more about the meditation, so it's described that the super soul also reminds us. Prabhupada says in one purport that you may not even be searching, but the super soul reminds you. Remember, you were attracted to that? You were into that in the past, you remember? The super soul, our friend, our eternal friend, helps us. And it's interesting that I was just reading recently in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the eyes, they see, and thus our senses we're able to walk and move, pick up things with our hands. But our senses don't see our eyes. Our senses don't see our eyes, but the eyes are able to see, and therefore we're able to engage our senses. So we don't see the super soul, but the super soul sees everything. The super soul, it's interesting. There's nothing that the super soul doesn't see. It's like there's people that think they're doing secret things. There's no secrets. No secrets. Not even in our mind. There's no secrets even in our mind. What to speak of our actions? Nothing is a secret to Krishna. So therefore we pray to have a pure mind, so that the super soul will be pleased with our thoughts, not only our actions, but our thoughts. It'd be nice when we have such pure consciousness. So actually the whole goal of what we're doing is to become servants of Krishna. So this comes about by association. So it's not just our own past activities, but it also is association. Just like before we joined this movement, how many of us were interested in engaging in pure service to God? I mean, none of us, right? Nobody was. But then by the association of Prabhupada, by association of Krishna, then we got this, now we have a strong desire we want to be pure servants of God. We should have, we're praying for a strong desire to be pure servants of Krishna. We should be praying to be pure servants of Krishna. And we're hoping that eventually that actually happens. And in this verse, Prabhupada mentions this Bhakti Lata, the cult of Bhakti. Bhakti Lata is the first daughter of Malayodvaja. Now, what is he says something else about the Bhakti Lata. Or maybe not. I thought there was another. Anyway, the Bhakti Lata beach is the seed of devotional service. Here, the point is that Bhakti Lata, the cult of devotion, fixes one in a spiritual position. So this is what we want. We want to be fixed in our spiritual position. And this Bhakti Lata Bij, it's described that this beach is watered by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atman, Nivedanam. By hearing, especially by hearing and chanting, this seed of devotion, it grows. It grows by this hearing and chanting, especially if we hear attentively. If we hear very attentively, and we also appreciate what we're hearing, then Krishna is so pleased that he cleanses us of all the contamination in the heart. So this is the kindness of Krishna. So we have to hear. It's described that one has to hear and chant for a long time, because we're in an age of a lot of darkness. So this hearing about Krishna brings light into our life, so that we become enlightened. We become enlightened by this hearing and chanting. And from hearing and chanting comes remembering. We remember Krishna. Just like we chant our 16 rounds, and the whole idea is that we get a taste for chanting, and a taste for remembering Krishna, so that we can remember Krishna throughout the day. And this is also the purpose of the hearing the philosophy, hearing the pastimes of Krishna, so that we can remember Krishna throughout the day. In this way, the Bhakti Lata Bij, it grows. And it's described that this Bhakti Lata Bij, it grows and grows and grows. It's a subtle plant. It's a subtle creeper that we don't see. Just like we don't see the super soul, we don't see this creeper of devotional service, but it's growing. And it's described that Lord Chaitanya explained to, I think it's Rupa Goswami, that this Bhakti Lata Bij, it penetrates the universe. Bhakti Lata Bij, it penetrates the universe and goes into the spiritual world. And do you know where it takes shelter? The feet of Krishna, the lotus feet of Krishna. And it's described also that even when it's at the lotus feet of Krishna, it spreads out. It spreads out. I was amazed. I read that yesterday in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This just like there's creepers that they kind of spread out. So, interesting. So when we're growing this creeper, we have to be very careful. Just like we have a garden there, and we have this little farm there in Escondido. And there's weeds. You got to pull out the weeds, right? Because the weeds, they destroyed the plant that we're trying to grow for vegetables and things. So regularly you have to come out, and that's one of your services, right? You come out and pull the weeds out, because the weeds can strangle this plant that we're trying to grow. So this is these weeds are kind of like envy and lust and greed, especially envy. This is a real strangler. Really strangles the creepers. So we have to be very careful, and be very respectful. Therefore, be very respectful towards devotees, because there's also the Hatimata. Anybody know what the Hatimata is besides Dravida and Mukunda and Ramapati? Huh? The mad elephant. Yes, very good. The mad elephant. Just like we have that nice garden there in Escondido. Imagine if a big elephant just came through and just started, walking through. It's finished. A cow, even a cow, can went around. He's walking all over. They've ruined it, huh? just stomped on everything.
It wasn't mad. Could have been worse.
He was just walking around and destroyed the whole garden. What to speak of an elephant? I mean, the elephant's hooves are like, what, 15 times bigger or something than the cows? Big. So if we offend, especially if we offend the guru, that's the hotimata offense. So the guru, actually it's described, Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Pasari Pai Bhakti Lata beads, that the spiritual master, he gives this Bhakti Lata beads to the disciple. So it's described, Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagyavan Jeev, that the soul is going from the higher planetary systems to the lower planetary systems and going through all different species of life. 8,400,000 different species of life. Now finally we got the human form of life. It's described that it's so rare to come across a bona fide spiritual master. The example is given just like a tree or a log or something, but it's cut and there's a knot hole there, and the turtle comes and sticks his head through the knot hole. Pretty rare occasionally. I mean, first of all, if it's out in the ocean, probably. Of course, it could be in a river. But it's pretty rare that a turtle's going to stick his head through this empty knot hole there. So it's very rare to come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. So we have to learn to serve the spiritual master. And by serving the spiritual master, we please Krishna. We can go directly. There was one interesting pastime with Prabhupada. San Francisco, Prabhupada's given a class. And one devotee from New York City, he came to San Francisco. And he had some difficulty. So he was lamenting. And when he went into the room, Prabhupada's giving class, and he's crying. And he comes to Prabhupada. And he's got his head on Prabhupada's lap, on his leg. And Prabhupada tries to console him. And he says, Prabhupada, I want to go directly to Krishna. I want to go directly to Krishna, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, I'm sorry, my son, you can't do that. And he's weeping, and then he gets up and he runs out of the room. Imagine. Here, the Shaktivesh Avatar, Srila Prabhupada, and he's so kind, he's giving shelter to so many youth that are just total Maya, and they're becoming wonderful devotees, but this person, he couldn't see that, he couldn't do that, he didn't want to have a guru, he just wanted to go directly to Krishna. Amazing. People have so many different mentalities. It's inconceivable. Yeah, inconceivable. So, we have to become servants of Krishna, servants of the devotees, and the result will be that we get purified. We change. We want to change. We want to become good servants of Krishna. And Prabhupada, he had this ability to turn crows into swans. And even he was in, I think it was in an airport or in Hawaii or something, and one priest came to Prabhupada, and he was speaking to Prabhupada. And he said, these boys you have, they were our boys. Christian. And they weren't interested in God. Now they're mad after God. And they're bright-faced. He was impressed that Prabhupada could change these people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol and all kinds of nonsense substances. And so Prabhupada was able to do that. So this is the result of taking shelter of the pure devotee. We get purified. And when we're completely pure, then guess what? We're completely happy. It's because of impurities that people are unhappy. So much suffering in the material world, mainly because of the impure heart. So we're here to get purified, but we're not only interested in our own purification. We want to help others. So we have to get these seeds of bhakti out to the people. Because in all of Prabhupada's books, there's these seeds of bhakti. And of course, some people are barren. They're not, they're not fertile. So they can't. They might read and even I've had people come up. I read the Bhagavad Gita, couldn't get anything out of it. Even devotees, they said, "Yeah, the first time I read it, couldn't make heads or tails out of it. But then I read it the second time. Oh, so in Kali Yuga, people aren't so fertile for accepting the Bhakti Lata Beach. But there's some people out there who read and they appreciate and they get purified. So we just have to, just like when the farmers go out, a lot of times they just throw the seeds out, right? And sometimes they grow, sometimes they don't. So we have to just let the seeds go, just pour them out, and some people, they're going to appreciate it, and then the seed's going to grow. Yeah. So this, what you have here, this bhakti lounge, it's so good. Of course, hopefully it opens up again. But this is where people are invited, and they come and they could learn about Krishna. It's fantastic. Yeah. Hopefully soon, probably not too soon, we'll be able to open that up again, and people can get cultivated. So in that regard, I wanted to say a few stories about book distribution that changed people's lives. There was one instance where a devotee was distributing books, store to store, business to business. This is in I think it was in Bombay, India. So he goes into one office, and he sees there's a meeting going on. Maybe 8 businessmen talking. He's got a stack of Bhagavad Gitas. So he saw the meeting going on. He said, "Oh, excuse me, I didn't know you had." So he started to leave, and the chairman of the meeting there, he said, "No, please come in, and give each of my colleagues a Bhagavad Gita, and I'll cover the cost." So he was happy with that, all right. So he did that, and it happened to be the end of their meeting. So this devotee asked this man who was so inspired to give his colleagues Bhagavad Gita, "Why are you so inspired by this Bhagavad Gita?" He said, "Well, I'll tell you what happened to me. I was living a happy life, 2 children, a wife, and yeah, everything was going good. But at one point, my wife changed, and she started calling me names and foul language and doing things that I would not imagine she would do. I can't even tell you. And I was shocked, and this was going on, and then my children saw her dealing with me in that way, and they started acting the same way, and I was just thinking, what is this? What happened? So then I started drinking. And I started drinking, I was drinking, and eventually I became an alcoholic. And my life was just miserable. I didn't want to go home. And I was just going to the bar and drinking, and didn't know what to do. So finally I decided that I'll just take my life. So he said I went to my room, and I was just getting ready to take the poison. And I just happened to look up, and I saw the Bhagavad Gita. the bookshelf. And I thought, maybe there's something there. Nothing to lose now. So he told this devotee, started reading it. Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So he said, just from reading the first paragraph, I felt so much relief. Just reading the first paragraph in the introduction. The introduction is very powerful, and we had a book actually called just Introduction of Bhagavad Gita. We used to distribute because it's that introduction is so powerful. So he said, just from reading that first paragraph, I was inspired. So I kept reading, I kept reading. I read the whole Bhagavad Gita in like 4 days. I was just reading Bhagavad Gita and eating a little bit, sleeping a little bit, and that was it. And when I finished reading the Bhagavad Gita, I had never been so happy in my life. I became so happy from reading the Bhagavad Gita. And I showed it. I was showing different things of the Bhagavad Gita to my wife. And she also got inspired. And she started apologizing. And she was reading more and more the Bhagavad Gita. And to make a long story short, we all became devotees. And we lived happily ever after. So, this is the power of Bhagavad Gita. Many people were on the verge of suicide, devotees in our movement, and then they got a book somehow, and they were saved. In two ways, from their material and spiritual lives. Please. Okay, here's the microphone. All right. Oh, this happened maybe... The devotee told me this back in about 2002, so around that area, turn of the century, around there. Another amazing story. This one boy, he was living in Estonia, and he was a big criminal. Actually, he was just a teenager. He was only like 19 years old. But he was a big criminal, and he was on the top 10 wanted list. The police were like looking for him. Yeah, top 10 most wanted, yeah. So he thought, I better get out of this country, because eventually they're going to catch me. So he left the country, and he just went traveling. Just traveling around, hitchhiking, and taking buses, and eventually he got on a spiritual quest. He started talking to people about God and spirit, and people started commenting, you're quite a spiritual person. You should go to India. That's a very spiritual place. So he was hearing this again and again. So I thought, well, I guess God wants me to go to India. So he hitchhiked to India. And while he was in India, he started, talking to spiritual people, and he's getting different books, and he got some of Prabhupada's books. But he was very inspired by Prabhupada's books. He could see this person, he's connected. So by Krishna's arrangement, a super soul, he was going around, and he walked by, and there's a temple, a Hare Krishna temple. So he went in, and he started talking to devotees, and he started visiting again and again, more and more devotees, and eventually he became a devotee after some time. So he joined the Bhakti program, and he had been gone from home for a few years now. So he decided to call his mother and explain to her that this change in his life. So he's talking to her, and he's talking, and then he said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I'm a monk now." She said, "You're a monk? I can't believe it. You're a monk. Well, what kind of a monk are you?" He said, "I'm a Hare Krishna monk." And she said, "Well, Haribol." And he said, "How do you know Haribol?" "Well, I'm a devotee too." "What do you mean you're a devotee?" "Yeah, I'm a devotee." Some devotees were going door to door and showed me the books, and I got a Bhagavad Gita and some other books, and I read them, and it was nice. So I started visiting the temple, and I'm initiated. He was still a bhakta. So the family that prays together stays together. So he was amazed. They were both amazed. They were in other parts of the world, and they both became devotees separately. Amazing. There was one instance of a lady who, she was married to a nice man, and they were from India, and they were living, I think they were living in New Jersey. This is back about 30 years ago. So she was pregnant, and she thought, what am I going to do with him? So her husband had gotten a Bhagavad Gita 10 years earlier, and it was just sitting in the bookshelf there. So she thought, well, this would probably be a good time to read Bhagavad Gita. So she read it, and she was so inspired. And she was telling her husband about it, and he started reading it, and they both became devotees. And she became Arudha. Do you know Arudha? Arudha Devi Dasi, she is the lady that turns out to be the best at raising children. She homeschooled her children. And he became Radhika Raman, the son. Yeah, Radhika Raman, some of you might know, he's famous, or he's one of our famous scholars now. Yeah, so and he got his PhD by the time he was 21. I mean, generally you're like 30. He was, huh? Oh yeah. And the way she homeschooled him, and all she used practically was Prabhupada's books. Of course, there were some things you had to do math and things like that, or some things you had to do reading, but the main source of her teaching was Prabhupada's books. And his brother, I forgot his name, they both got initiated. He's the same way. He got his PhD later than Radhika Raman. Oh yeah? Wonderful. The whole family is just a wonderful family. Yeah, they built, they didn't have there was no temple in Boise, Idaho. So he decided, I'll just turn my house into a temple. And it became a full-on temple. There was another house next door, so they just bought that house and they put them together. So it's a beautiful temple, Boise, Idaho. But it was from the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is sitting there for years, transcendental time bomb, just waiting, tick, 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 tick. Then they open it up. So we just have to get the books out there. Even if it just sits in their room, you never know when they're going to pick it up later. And the books are very patient. I tell people that sometimes they say, I have no time. I'm so busy. So I tell them, I'm going to tell you something you never heard about books. Books are patient. They'll wait for years. All right, well, you got me there, yeah. They always come up with a lot of excuses, like sometimes they say, it's too heavy, it's so big, it's so heavy. I tell them, this book is so heavy, it'll carry you. All right, you got me there, right? I told it to the one guy at Balboa Park. He said, oh man, that was a great one. He said, stand up, and he gave me a bear hug, that was great, so he took a Bhagavad, gave a nice donation. So people come up with so many excuses, so we have to learn how to overcome their excuses. But you can only do that if you go on book distribution, right? Actually, book distribution, it's an adventure, isn't it? It is book distribution. If you get a taste for book distribution, you're set for life. I mean, it's just such a wonderful activity. It's an adventure. It's a wonderful, transcendental adventure. And today starts the marathon. So we're going to do huge today. Right? Hopefully. Anyway, hopefully gradually we'll get into it. We want to please Srila Prabhupada, please the Acharyas. So Prabhupada, he came here for this purpose, to help us come out of Maya, to help us go towards Krishna, to give us this Bhakti Lata beads, so that we can learn about Krishna and become attracted to Krishna and serve Krishna. Yeah. In London one time, Prabhupada arrived at the airport, and what would happen quite often is there would be reporters there, and they would question Prabhupada. So one reporter asked Prabhupada, "Why have you come to London?" And Prabhupada said, "I've come here to help you remember what you have forgotten. You've forgotten your Lord, Krishna. So I've come to help you remember." So this is Prabhupada. This is what he did. Yeah. Another time, same city, arrived in London, another year, sometime later. "Swamiji, why have you come here?" Prabhupada said, "You know, you British, you went to India, and you took so many things out of India. Yeah. So many things you took out of India. The British jewels from India, so many things, people and assets, so many things. But you didn't take the most valuable thing, which is the Vedic literature. You forgot to take the most valuable thing. So I've come to bring you the most valuable thing that you didn't take when you were there." And Prabhupada, he made so many British devotees. So we're very indebted to Srila Prabhupada. And if we want to pay back our debt to Prabhupada, the best way, Prabhupada said, do as I'm doing. Preach this message. Okay? On that note, is there any question or comment? Yes, Dravida Prabhu? Comment.
I don't know if you heard this story, but if you didn't, you can put it in your Rolodex of stories. It happened locally here. I'm pretty sure the book distribution is going on, and they used to go in the parking lots and and try to give books to the people sitting in their cars, coming in or out, shopping, whatever. So the devotee, he sees this one fella, and I think this is the story. Maharaj can clarify it. And he was committing suicide. He had the pipe already coming from the exhaust into the window. The window is slightly open, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the devotee said, "Open up the window, you know, I'm going to give you this book." It was a small book. And the guy said, no, you know. So he put it on the windshield. You know, he put it under the windshield so he could see the cover, you know, he just put it in there. And then he went off. So this guy's, you know, committing suicide, and he looks at the cover in the book, well, I might as well check out the book, you know. So he opens the window.
I think the name of the book was Reservoir of Pleasure, or something like that.
Oh, so you heard this one? Yeah. Maybe it was Reservoir of Pleasure. So he reads the Reservoir of Pleasure, and he decides not to commit suicide. Comes to the temple, joins up, becomes an initiated devotee. I don't know how the whole thing ends up. But that was there we have a suicide story.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. Ki?